Hey everybody, it's me, Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie. On this episode of CD Junkie, I'm going to be talking about one of Australia's most successful exports, but I'm only going to be covering a certain period of their career. The band I'm talking about is INXS. I'm only going to cover the 80s, essentially because by the time they entered into the 90s, I was married, I had a daughter, so I really didn't follow them as closely as I did in the 80s. Of course, I bought each subsequent album, including Max Q, which was a Michael Hutchence side project. And the stuff I loved the most was essentially the building blocks to their career. So we are going to talk about INXS. Now, I usually like to start these episodes out by telling you how I got into the band. And that was about 1983 or so. I'm from Orange County, and there was a venue that played concerts on a regular basis back then, all year long, called Pacific Amphitheater. And I saw that Adam Ant was doing his Friend or Foe tour, and he was going to be appearing there. And the opening act was a band called INXS. At least that's how I read it, INXS, INXS. I had no idea how to pronounce the name. I just saw the name. So it was probably within a matter of days, I went to Licorice Pizza and I saw this album by a band called INXS. And I picked it up and it was called Shabu Shaba. And I fell in love with it. So I went backwards. So that is how I got into the band INXS. So we're going to start with their debut album. It is just called INXS. Came out in 1980. It's a wonderful mix of new wave, pub music. I mean, the band already had a personality to die for. You had Michael Hutchence on vocals. You had Ferris on keyboards. You had Gary Beers on bass. You had John Ferris on drums. You had Tim Ferris on guitar. And you had Kirk Pengilly on guitar and saxophone and other instruments. Just an incredibly original Australian band. Like I said, it was new wave meets pub, and there was just little hints of what was to come. But they had a lot of really good songs in the album. Very unique, very different, and definitely in 1980, a band to watch out for. And of course, like I said, I didn't actually hear this album until 1983, but all the signs of INXS were there. They followed that up with an album in 1981 called Underneath the Colours. Another fine platter, unique. The sound of INXS, the guitars, Tim Ferriss's guitar, the unique tone and the way he plays it, it was very apparent on Underneath the Colours. It wasn't really coming out in the fore, but it was part of the band's sound. Again, lots of great original songs, very new wave, meets pub, a really fine album. Now, I haven't showed the CDs because I wanted to show you a CD I have called Stay Young, which is a 2-CD set. And this features the entirety of both of those albums, plus all the singles, A-sides and B-sides that were not on the albums, plus some live material, plus 1992 re-recordings of some of the tracks off the first couple albums. And that is it there. This is a wonderful CD. You can buy both the INXS and Underneath the Colours separate on CD and vinyl, if you are a vinyl person. But the bonus stuff makes this edition here very, very worth your while if you can track that down. It's wonderful. Like I said, first 2 INXS albums, all the A and B sides from that period. Plus it has like a live version of something from their new album, which was going to be the next one that we're going to talk about right now. The album that really turned me on to the band because INXS was opening for Adam Ant. Ironically enough, though, I never went to that concert, but I did end up buying the INXS album, Shabu Shaba, which is a completely different beast than the first two. These just showed hints of what was to come. This was really the band in I don't want to say full flight because I think came with the next album or two, but this was really them soaring. It was just a wonderful, because it sounded like nothing else. Songs like The One Thing, it was, a hit on, KROQ and new wave stations. Might have even have been a hit on MTV, I'm not sure. But a unique sound. They still hadn't focused quite on that INXS sound that we have come to know and love, but so many great songs. And this ends with a song that is really an anthem. It's called Don't Change. And that still remains one of, if not my favorite INXS song. But there's so many great songs in their catalog. And I know a lot of other people really, really dig that song as well. But this is a remastered version, but it doesn't have any bonus tracks, which is strange. I don't like it when they do remasters and don't add bonus tracks. But whatever. That came out in 1982. 1984, out comes INXS, The Swing, which really showed the band incorporating a lot of what was to come into their sound. Lots of great songs. still a very unique band, very different than Shabu Shabash. I mean, Shabu Shaba is a very densely packed album, and this right here, there's a lot more space, and the band can experiment more, or even more, I should say, because each album, it shows them experimenting. And, this has like Original Sin, I Send a Message, Burn For You, lots of great songs on that album. This, again, is a remastered version with no bonus tracks. That is The Swing, came out in 1984. 1985, I think that the INXS sound was totally in place with the album Listen Like Thieves. A really wonderful full album. With every album before, there was a little bit of experimentation going off in different directions. But this album here, it all came together, and every song had that unique INXS sound. You're going to get What You Need and the title track, Shine Like It Does, which is one of my favorite INXS songs, which is on this album. A whole lot more. This was INXS in full flight. And while I love songs off of The Swing and Shabu Shaba more than I love songs off of this, I think this is a better album. And Listen Like Thieves, a wonderful album. If you don't own any INXS, I think that's a great gateway to get into them. INXS, Listen Like Thieves. 1987, which is the final album we're going to talk about today, is the album that really broke them big worldwide, and that is Kick. My thoughts on this album are I think it's good. I think it has some good songs. I think it's like, whereas the other albums were definitely 80s, this is like glossy 80s production. I don't think the songs are as strong as anything that they put out. I mean, there's great songs in here. Need You Tonight, Mediate, Never Tear Us Apart, songs like that. I mean, there are great songs in here. This is when they became absolutely huge megastars on the radio, megastars on MTV, megastars all around the world. It wasn't just an American thing or an Australian thing. They took Europe and Japan and, all the other countries, and this was their most successful album. This here is just the simple deluxe edition. It has a bonus disc of, demos and a couple other things on there. There's like a 25th anniversary one with 2 or 3 CDs and a 30th anniversary one, I think, with 2 or 3 CDs with a lot more material. But those are way too pricey, so I had to settle for just the regular deluxe edition. INXS Kick came out in 1987. Now, their next album, which was X10, that came out in 1990. And that was the first album that they kind of dropped in popularity a little bit in the US, but they still remained huge their entire career in Europe and Australia. And of course, the death of Michael Hutchence put an end to the original lineup. But the 80s stuff is really what I focus on. But, I still have the other albums. I'm just not showing them to you, but I will show you this. This is Shine Like It Does. It's a 2 CD collection. It has songs throughout their career there, and there's some rarities on there as well. You might want to track that down if you can. And that is it. But guess what? I have a short INXS medley. It's not long at all. Just want to remind you of what a great band this is. Little tiny short samples of some of their biggest hits, and maybe 1 or 2 of my favorites in there as well. Give this a listen, and I'll see you on the other side.
Everybody's mind to bang. Oh, hypnotizer. Carpet lining, seats reclining. The words are smooth and talking. Shove it, brother, just keep walking. I love my love's in vain. My love. you need. Everybody's down on their knees, living like thieves. So slide over here and give me a moment. Your moves are so raw, I've got to let you know. Two worlds colliding, and they could never, ever tear us apart.
Well, that's it. I hope that you enjoyed this look at INXS in the 80s, my favorite period of the band. I'm not saying you shouldn't buy anything from 1990 and onwards. This just happens to be my favorite time period. Anyway, I appreciate you. Remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, to ring that bell for future notifications. And until the next time, remember me. I'm Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie.